Uh, Good afternoon. Well, thank you very much for inviting me here. Thank Natasha for inviting me here to speak with you. So my name is Flaviano Bianchini. I'm from Italy originally, and I'm the founder of Source International, that is a no-profit organization who deal with extractive industries all over the world. We have currently 16 projects in 4 continents, so we cover pretty much all over the world. But our main project is in Latin America right now. For 2 reasons. The first reason is that just I start there, and so major contacts are down there. And the second reason is that somehow Latin America is right now the new frontier of extractive industries. It's politically more stable than 10 years ago. There's a lot of minerals, and we know since 500 years. And so it's somehow the emerging market of new extractive industries. So a question that will come out later. So, well, anytime that you have a question, just do it. We are 10 persons. Don't wait at the end. It makes no sense to me.
Man, you just opened up a can of worms.
The question that everyone do is how I start this and when. So it was 9 years ago, in 2005. I was in a conference in Italy, actually in Milan. Probably know. And there was a Guatemalan lady who was talking about mining pollution in her country. She was talking about this impact that mining is having in Guatemala, and she had this very powerful and emotional presentation, but with no data. She had no one single data in her presentation. I was studying science at that moment, so at the end of the conference I go to her and say, I mean, very interesting, but with no data I can challenge you very easily. I mean, how can I trust you without data? And she told me, it's 5 years that we are looking for scientists working with us. We don't have access to scientific tools. We cannot prove what will happen. So that was November. I graduated in science in December. And in January, I raised up $10,000. And in February, I go working for her for 1 year and a half. So it started like this. It started my idea of bringing scientific tools to those communities and grassroots organizations and companies who does not have access to science. That was really the beginning, and then it takes 7 years of troubles and mistakes and go back and forward between Europe and Latin America and Africa and whatever, making several projects and doing a lot of mistakes actually, and finally it came out 2 years ago with the final idea that is Source International. That is a group of scientists, and when I mean scientists I mean water quality, soil quality, but also social scientists, anthropologists and everything, that works for communities who faces pollution and human rights violation, especially linked to extractive industries. So, and that's pretty much the story of Source International. Today, Natasha asked me to talk a little bit more about confrontation and collaboration. And that's pretty interesting because somehow also my history, 9 years, at the beginning I was working for more groups, grassroots groups that were more focused on the confrontation. Right now we switch a little bit more in the collaboration side, and I will explain you how. First of all, because we work mainly in Latin America, but it's the same in Africa, we have to make a little resume of the recent history of Latin America or Africa. In the last 400 or 500 years, every single Western or European games in those countries have made a mess. So it's not difficult, and mainly for extractive industries, mainly for mine. I mean, the biggest genocide of history was made for gold in Latin America. But it's the same in Africa and in some part of Asia. So it's not, I mean, today is pretty much the same. And you can see like this enormous mine is a little bit changed the situation between the slavery to this, somehow it's no more slavery inside the mine, that is an enormous impact on the environment. That means impact on the health of population. And as I mentioned, I mean, 90% of the companies are from the Western world, Canada, United States, Europe, and so the community perceives this kind of activity as a continuation of the last 500 years of exploitation by the Western world. So it's somehow clear that this pattern of confrontation comes out, I would say, naturally. So pretty much often the communities are in this situation of confrontation between the companies. I have some pictures about what is mining activity and how can be impacting on communities. This is, for example, a group of kids playing football under mining waste. This is in Peru. This is the hospital of the city of Cerro de Pasto, so even people sick have to manage with mining waste up on their head. And this is the discharge of the water of a mining company in Peru even. That is just open air discharge water. This water had metals dissolved that is up to 1,000 times the maximum allowed. And if you drink this water for 2 liters a day, every day, the amount of aluminium that is inside that water, it means that at the end of the year you drink 8 cans of Coke. I mean the can, not the inside. 8 cans of aluminium is the amount of aluminium that you drink in 1 year if you drink this water. And there are 70,000 people who drink this water, it's not just a couple. And it's the same when we talk about oil extraction. And I think that most of us knows pretty much about the case of Niger Delta in Nigeria, in Africa, where oil spills are all over the world, all over the river, all over the delta, and all over the days. They are an average in the last 40 years of 400 oil spills a year, so it's more than one a day. And all the agricultural sector and fishing sector is died actually because there's no more fish and no more clean water for agriculture. And funny, let's say, thing is that those communities doesn't receive nothing of the economic wealth that comes out from those kind of activity. According to the World Bank, in the Niger Delta, less than 1% of the profit of the oils comes to the community. So it's really, a ridiculous amount of money. This picture was made in Amazon forest. This is my hand. And the community where we were working, they had 82 oil wells inside their territory. The company was producing something, 46 millions of $1 a year of of benefits, let's say.
Oh.
Not revenues, the profit. Yeah, sorry. So $64 million of profit, and the community were receiving $9,000 a year. And divided by about 1,600 inhabitants, it means more or less a slice of pizza of each every year. So, and then actually this is the case in which communities you can be the casual. So they are producing 64 meat. The casual is the inflated belly that is typical from the nutrition, absence of protein and B vitamin. And you have a company who is producing inside your territory 64 millions of profits every year, and your kids are like this. So it's quite clear that finally you came out with a concept of confrontation. You don't have the willing of cooperate or collaborate with this kind of companies. And then it starts this protest and whatever the social movement. If you open any newspaper of Latin America today or tomorrow or the day after, you will find conflicts linked to extractive industries somewhere. There are 1,600 conflicts linked to extractive industries in Latin America alone. So it's a lot. And just at the beginning, when I started to do this work, this is a picture of one of my first projects in Guatemala. Every time that the community came out protesting against this kind of company, this kind of behavior of the company, because sometimes community does not protest. A lot of time they just say, we don't want the mine. But sometimes they just say, we want the mine, but we don't want this kind of mine, you know? Because, of course, a mine or oil extraction activity, more the mine than the oil extraction, is also a source of job. But with the oil extraction, it's less, I have to say, because it's mainly all automatized and just a couple of engineers down there. But with the mine, there's a sort of job that the community need this, but at the same time, they have to manage with the pollution and all the health problem. So sometimes the community came out and protesting, and the reaction of government was just defending the companies and burn out everything. And in this case, they just burned out an entire village. That was 2006, because the mine want to mine the territory where was the village, and just the village raised out they don't want to sell their land and they'll be evicted, and so the police and the army arrived and just burned out. And then 5 years later, the mining company was found guilty in Canada. It was a Canadian mining company. It was found guilty to have paid the police for doing this. So that was the situation, and it still is somehow the situation, but something is changing in the last years. If I were here doing this presentation 7, 6, maybe even 5 years ago, I was just telling you that was the reality and nothing else. But in the last years, something is somehow changing, and there is a new trend. It is when it came out the collaboration instead of the confrontation. And first of all, what is changing is the mentality of the companies. Companies, for several reasons that we are now looking, they start to understand that is, from the economic point of view even, is better to deal with communities and negotiate and collaborate than go to a mere confrontation. Let's see, there are 5 major points. The first one is that a lot of companies have lost millions and even billions of dollars due to lawsuits. Any one of you have never heard about the case of Chevron? Chevron Texaco in Ecuador. They were found guilty about 18 billions of dollars. I mean, Chevron is an enormous company, but 18 billions of dollars is quite a lot for anyone, I mean. And the Marlin case in Guatemala was the first one, the first case in which an Inter-American Court of Human Rights found guilty the mining company called Corp, and they have to pay for the remedies. And Pascualama was supposed to become the biggest mine of the world between Chile and Argentina, in the Andes at 18,000 feet high, I mean in the top of the Andes. And Barrick Gold is the biggest mining company of the world, invest in that mine $5 billion, and after 1 month, the mine was shut down by a lawsuit in the Chilean side. And so now the mine is closed, and they invest $5 billion, and they came out with a couple of hundred millions because just 1 month. You know, they invest for 30 years and they exploit 1 month. So that's the first step. What about if Barrick, instead of building the mining company without the support of the community, they should have built a company dealing with the community and avoid this lawsuit. Now they should have $5 billion more in their pocket. Probably they should have spent some millions more for the dealing with the community and make them somehow happy and everything, but it's something that you can play instead of having $5 billion lost. In other cases, like the Conga case, another quite famous case with Newmont, which is an American company actually, based in Colorado, Denver. Newmont is starting to operate this mine in these 10 years that they are trying to build a mine that is actually somehow an expansion of an old mine called Yanacocha. And because the old mine, Yanacocha, had made a disaster all over the world, the community is opposing a lot to this project. This is 10 years that Newmont is investing. It's difficult to say, but they estimate that they already spent more than $1.2 billion, and they neither built the first brick. They don't have done nothing because the community is opposing all the time. They just, anytime that they try to come with a truck, the community shut down the road, block everything, no way. And North Mara is in Tanzania, where the community was so fed up with the company that just one day came inside the mine and destroyed pretty much everything. So now the company spent $15 million every year just in security. That is somehow create a jail among yourself. That is not really a pleasant place to work, and it's expensive too. And And then there is an image point. Let's try to image how much BP have lost in public opinion and public relation with the case of here or the Gulf of Mexico or Chevron Texaco at the same time. There is something that is there is something that it seems to be there since always, but it is not. That is this hyper-connected world. When I started to do this job 9 years ago, there were no Facebook, no Twitter, no smartphone, or at least they were there, but embryonal something. Yes. So we were in area with no connection. You have to take the pictures and sell to the New York Times, and they don't care and nothing. Right now, you are in the middle of nowhere in the Amazon forest. You have your phone, you make the picture, you send it on Twitter, and if you have 50,000 followers, if you are lucky that Justin Bieber retweeted, all over the world knows this, you know. And this is something that, I mean, you have to deal with this. It's not easier. 10 years ago, you can pollute in the middle of the Amazon forest. No one ever know this. And they've been like this for 500 years. But now, it's no more like this. And then there is another case that is pretty much interesting, that until, this is even more new, it's just until maybe 2, 3, let's say 4 years ago, no one cared about that money. It's just people think, put the money in this basket, give me the 7%, give me 8%, I don't care. Right now, a lot of people is more aware that where the investors are more aware where their money goes. There is this concept of the social impact, so a lot of even big investors are more aware. And there is a case against Barrick Gold when Human Rights Watch, probably all of you knows, make this report about the Progera mine in Papua New Guinea, where Barrick Gold were doing a disaster. And when this case came out, the pension fund of Norway, that was the owner of 5% of Barrick Gold, they retrieved all their stock. That means that Barrick Gold lost 22% in the stock of value one day. That, again, it's a big company, but it's a lot of money. And there are more, I mean, this is a big case with the pension fund of Norway, but a lot of other small investors, there are no more, I just want to see 8% back. More of them, a lot of them starting to deal with this. And then there is the last point, it is the consumer awareness. So everyone knows that, no, I don't think that everyone knows, but for example, Intel, and I was talking about Cisco, maybe it's the same, they can't conflict-free last year. So all the minerals in the microchip that we use in our computer, pretty much all the computer has Intel, about 90%, they are now conflict-free on the free minerals, not all, unfortunately, but this is the first step. So the tantalum, the tin, and the tungsten that are inside the microchips right now are conflict-free. That because the final consumer, in this case Intel, push on the mining company to obtain, those companies have a lot of money to spend and they want to maintain their clean image, and they are somehow obtaining this changing. And even Apple is starting to work a little bit and see about what is possible to do with the conflict-free. And then there is this telephone, is the Fairphone. Is that, for example, this is a telephone that is done with all minerals conflict-free, all minerals that are not polluted the world, not all minerals with little scale mining activities and all this stuff, no works labor. And I mean, it's a credible idea, but the interesting thing that this phone has sold more phones than the Amazon one. You know, the Amazon tried to make a phone. It was pretty much a fiasco. They sell 30,000 phones. They sell 70,000, and now they're doing 30,000 more. So there are a lot of people that they are now available, let's say, to spend $100 more, but having something clean in their hand, you know? So it's just a first step. I mean, those computers that we are using are polluting and producing human rights violation, conflicts and whatever. But it's a first step. Meanwhile, we have a phone, we have a choice, and then, you know, in 10 years, 10 years ago was nothing about this. This is everything, something that happened in the last 5 or 6 years. So I want to be sure, because I want to have then a discussion part. I want to just make you a case study, so talking a little bit about one specific company that is Goldcorp. Is the third biggest mining company of the world. And when I go to Guatemala the first time, I was mainly involved in a case of Goldcorp. And it was 2006, 2007. And the case is the Marlin case. This is the mine, seen from the above. Big pollution, human rights violation, is an indigenous territory, so the indigenous communities, there is an international standard, international law that actually enforces states to obtain the consent of indigenous community if they want to make some kind of activity inside their territories. So in that case, they didn't done this. They just came out, built a mine inside the indigenous community without asking nothing to nobody, and start to polluting the water, the air, the sediments, and everything. We proved this, we prevent the case, and the reaction of the company was to demand everyone. They demand the community, they demand me, they demand the lawyer. Finally, a lot of persons involved in this campaign, let's call it like this, were threatened. A couple of people were killed, and I was expelled from Guatemala. This was the kind of reaction, and that was 7-8 years ago. I have nothing against Goldcorp, but 2 years ago I came to another project in Mexico with Goldcorp. So that is in Carrizalillo, Guerrero. We started to work there in 2013. Similar case. The company arrived in 2004, 2005, just built this enormous mine. Look at this. The Destroy Mountains that was 2,500 meters high and now is 500 meters, so 6,000 feet less. And they will arrive to 1,500 under the sea level. So at the end it will be 13,000 feet, I think, 14,000 feet more or less destroyed. For all this rock, 0.5 grams for every tons is gold, all the rest is waste. So you will have an enormous amount of waste. They have occupied like 80% of the productive land of the community, sorry. And the community were receiving zero, nothing. They just buy the land from the community illegally, because in Mexico you cannot buy a communal land by law. So they buy it illegally, they give them $100 for every acre, while the production of maize for just 1 year for 1 acre is around $340. So it was really ridiculous. But you know, the indigenous community, very poor, very isolated, they see $100 in cash and say, wow, wonderful, let's sell it. We arrived there in 2003, and we demonstrate that they were violating the law for buying the land, that they were polluting the water, they were polluting the air. This is how it is in the morning. You can see the dust. Now it's a little bit light, but this enormous dust came out. It were lead and arsenic in the air of the community. So finally, we make a big report. We go to them, and surprisingly, the same company, but 7 years later, decide to sit on a table and create a negotiation table between the community and the company. And after 6 months of negotiation, the company agree an enormous. I won't go through this. I will leave you a little bit better.
So what your company was doing is going in and actually taking the air measurements and getting the scientific objective data. Your company was getting the objective data to show the pollution.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, we do an independent study in which we demonstrate the pollution and also the social impact and the violation of the law in that case about the buying of the land that is very clearly forbidden in Mexico. So what was quite easy in that case. But surprisingly, the point is the company decided to sit on a table and negotiate an agreement with the community. And the agreement is a very long agreement, a 70-page agreement, that there is some mitigation of pollution instead of the dust, for example, the company agreed to use water for like make it wet and avoid dust. And the enormous is finally around $10 million a year for the next 5 years. It's a 5 years agreement. So they have scholarship, some money in cash, scholarship to all this grade. They will build another, they will build a dam for a reservoir for taking clean water to the entire community. There will be the drainage system for the community. Then, well, some other stuff. The community insists a lot for having $7,000 for making the patronal fest. So the Saint Fest, you know, Saint Party, something Mexico, and a lot, and the externality of several activities because the mine will close in 2032, and after that, what happened in the community? So something that can be more long term. So some economic activities started from the community. So it's a long list.
Sure.
Yeah.
What was the government support like? Did you face any challenges with the government when you started?
The government was not involved in any step. No one. The government was just out. Actually, this is the state of Guerrero. That is where the government. I mean, have you followed a little bit the case? Yeah. So the students were messing in Mezcala is 30 miles from there. So the government is not actually the one that you want to go. So we were trying to avoid this, and I think that the boss of the mining companies think exactly the same. They don't want to have the government in the middle, and especially because that's maybe my understanding. I don't know, but our idea is that well, the company is very afraid to be somehow linked to drug cartels, because United States and Canada recognize the drug cartels in Mexico as terrorist group. So if an American company or Canadian somehow is linked with a terrorist group, I mean, it's a big, big issue. So they don't want to have nothing to do with the government, because everyone knows that the government was now is no more government there.
Yeah, but the things that you showed us that were negotiated for, were these things that you proposed, or was this things that the company proposed, and how did the negotiations go for that?
We proposed more, the company proposed less, and we negotiated. So we obtained not all that we want, but we set up a lane. We say, I propose 10, but I know that I can pay 5. Mm-hmm. It's like when you buy something, we start with 10, knowing that we probably obtain 5. We draw a line on 3, telling we won't go down 3. And I would say that finally we have obtained around 5, what we expect. We just miss a couple of details, but yeah, like the major detail that was missing is about the dust reductions, technical stuff, but I don't want to go too much in deep, but it's for getting down, the problem is the dust is enormous there, because the community is 600 meters from the mine. Mm-hmm. So it's very close. It's 1,500 feet, more or less, very close. Mm-hmm. So the dust arrived in the community, and this big, big issue, because this dust is mineralized. They have lead, arsenic, aluminium, and everything. We wanted the company, we asked that the company move this part of the mine more far away. And of course, we knew that it was difficult to obtain because it's an enormous expenditure, it's more than $10 million. So finally they agreed to use this water, but it's not an area where there is a lot of water actually. So somehow this is the only thing that is a little bit behind the line that we said. But yeah, for all the others, it's good. And we are quite happy, especially because it's the first time. It's the first time that a company and the community sit together at a table and negotiate this kind of agreement. And it's something that I repeat, 4 or 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago was unthinkable. Really. It was the same company, and look at the reaction that it had in 2007 and the reaction that it had now. So, yeah, that is a little bit this changing in pattern since 500 years of confrontation to somehow a new cooperative side that we hope can be the new trend.
Two questions. So how did you grow your social enterprise, and how did it get funded, and what are you using as your funding model for your enterprise?
Yeah, that's the tricky question. So right now, we are based mainly on grant. So 80% of our incomes are grant, and we want to switch from this situation. Our goal for the next 3 years is be outside of grants, so be self-sustainable. And we are trying and prototyping different business models. One of those models is that in this case, it actually is the 20% that right now is not from grant. The community have obtained this enormous amount of money, and we take a little percentage that is 0.1%. That is not a lot, but on 10 million a year is something. And then we are trying to address others, and like one of those is with final users, like can be Intel, Apple, Acer, or whatever. The ones who use finally the minerals and they want to clean up their supply chain, they can pay us in order to control all the supply chain of those minerals. And they can work with IT in the first step, because I think they are the companies more sensible. They are more young companies, they also have more money, but they're also more open-minded, I think. I have this perception. But then it would be great to switch even to jewelry, for example, or bags.
Apparel even, we have downfill jackets. So supply chain of where the feathers come from and how much of it is live plugging. They say it's 2%, but even that, it's not animal right protected. So
yeah, it came out. I don't know if you're. What's the name of this? An Italian very famous brand that sell like
lightweight jackets.
Down jacket to $1,000. You know. A very famous one is not that much in this kind of industry, but
it's across the industry. It's no matter who's buying the down.
It came out a big case here because they discovered that their down came from horrible situation. I mean, it's really.
But your focus is extractive industries, or are you planning on moving across?
We are now working only in extractive industry, but we have 2 new projects that we will start that are in different. So the idea is all the control of the chain, and one of them actually is in textile industries in Indonesia, and because there are other companies, other kind of private company that makes disaster.
How many? I'm just trying to understand your structure. So how many employees are there, and how do you like? I know you travel a lot. How do you find out all about these different locations, and how do you get notified?
So we define ourselves as a super light organization because we are a small group of persons, no office, no staff in the office. We are all in the field, and we are 4 people right now, 2 full-time and 2 part-time on projects, and we move whatever we need. We don't find the project. It's the project who find us. I mean, it's the community who calls us. We receive every week a couple of calls by different communities, and we focus. We have to choose because we don't have enough resources for everything, and we normally use 2 main things that we look at. The first one is the impact that having. If the community is called, oh, we have the smoke, a little bit of smoke from, because sometimes it's really something. Okay, I agree with you. I'm sorry about the smoke of the car and shut down your house, but there's something worse. And the second one is where we can have impact, which can be the outcome. So we look at those 2 things and we decide in your projects.
Armani, you went Armani there.
I was just going to ask, what kind of expertise do you guys have for your, I mean, obviously, there's sometimes you need lawyers, so how do how do you like leverage all of those different expertise?
We don't have lawyer.
Okay.
I'm half lawyer because I made the law school, but I'm not a lawyer. And we have partners who are lawyers, so we can, if we need a lawyer, we use some partners. And we are 2 scientists, 1 anthropologist, and 1 is the communication side, so picture, movies, videos, and all this stuff.
First of all, thank you for what you're doing. It's shocking. You hear about it, but to actually see it, it's disturbing. How do you decide who you partner with? Can you talk about that? As far as expertise.
From which side? From the community or from?
From both, yeah. From who do you know who to trust when you're on the ground?
Well, that's a very interesting question. So, first of all, in our, let's say, operational system, we don't go for 2 days. We always, at least the first time, we stay 1 month. And what we ask to the community is that the community gives us hospitality and food. That is not for avoid $10,000, $3,000 that we can spend. Is for build a relationship, you know. We need to live inside the community, stay with them. If they eat just rice and yucca, it's the Amazon forest, we eat rice and yucca. If they sleep on the floor, we sleep on the floor. So we create this kind of strong relationship, and then we understand who we can trust and who we can't. And so that's finally, I mean, even between organizations, sometimes we work partnership with organizations. Organization has a group of people, so finally is the personal relation is something that is finally important for me.
And then the language barriers, like how do you overcome that?
So in Latin America we don't have language barrier because we speak, all of us, we speak Spanish very well. In Africa we are working in Senegal where we don't have language barrier because we speak French, 2 of us. Well, we are 4 and we speak like 14 languages, so that's good.
Right. But you're in Mongolia.
But in Mongolia, we were 4 and no one speaks Mongolian. And actually it was hard, I'd say. We had a translator, and she has made an incredible job, the translator, but it's different. Yeah. It's not really, it's not the same thing. And that's a reason we are still working in Mongolia, but if we can, I mean, the world is so big, and with our languages, we can cover a big part of the world. So probably in the future, we will focus more on the place where, we can speak the languages. Yeah. Yeah, because this is really a tough part. Yeah.
I worked on the other side. I worked for the mining company.
Okay.
And
which one?
It's called SR.
What was it called?
It's a refinery. So we buy the mines, and then we extract the iron ore, and then we pelletize it and send it to our factory.
Okay.
So I was in charge of a plant, and I had to negotiate with organizations like yours. Part of the deal was somewhere genuine, somewhere not. So that was a part of Raleigh's question. The second question, which was like pretty difficult, was the threats that are there. So there were threats on both sides, community attacking the mining company and the mining company attacking others. So did you have threats like that, and how did you handle it?
So that's a good question, because it goes in the other side that, as you say, there's a lot of organization that is just opposing to everything, you know, the radicals one. So how we overcome all this with science? Because we give scientific instruments and scientific tools. The community will measure its number. The amount of lead that is inside the water is a number. It's 20, okay. It's 100, it's not okay. You know. So this kind of system that we create somehow a common ground of dialogue based on science. So that's the overcome this problem of who trusts and who not. And about the threat, as I mentioned, is somehow, I mean, it's understandable. Some communities are threat for a company, but I mean, if you look at the 500 years of history, it's quite impressive. I mean, if I were there, I would probably be the first one who trying to burn the company. But that's the point in which if the company deal with the community, they can avoid the threat. And it is on the long term, from the business point of view, is a good stuff. Because maybe you have to spend $2 million a year, but you can planify those $2 million a year in the next 20 years, you know that you will spend 40, while if the community comes out and burn your installation, you probably spend 80. So it's somehow, that's the key point, somehow avoid the threat, avoid the confrontation and goes to a cooperation, but you need both sides willing, and what we do is create a common ground where they can will, that is control together. The community will control you if you really don't do nothing wrong, it's just a benefit for you. So that's actually the strength of our model.
I have a question. I saw your website, and I saw you have a young lady, I think in Colorado, that as your publicity, as your PR work. How do you leverage internet or media, new media, to further your cause? Or have you done that?
So, until 2 weeks ago, very bad. Because, well, we have that web page and it's not bad, but it's nothing special. And we had like 200 followers in Twitter. That is a tenth of what every teenager has. And but now, since 2 weeks, we have a volunteer who's working on the communication side, and we are trying to improve this. This is important. I mean, unfortunately, I say that. I mean, today is super important, and so yeah, we're trying to improve it.
Have you done anything in the United States?
No, until today. But this evening, actually, I have to go because I will meet with a group of people that are concerning about the permanent quarry that is in the Silicon Valley. There is this big cement mine.
In Cupertino, up in the mountain.
Stevens Creek.
What?
It's in Silicon Valley.
Yeah, it's in Cupertino.
Yeah, Cupertino, that's right, yeah. Just like there in Australia.
I've never been there, I will go now.
Yeah.
5 o'clock I have a meeting there, 5:30. So, and we will see. I would like to
Because
work
it's been
there.
controversial for, I don't know, 50 years or so since it's been open, it's been controversial.
Yeah, I've read a little bit of the story and what happened. There's already a couple of studies, but the community does not believe too much in the studies made by the EPA, and yeah. So
You
that's
might know the person who might be able to resolve this.
Yeah, sure.
Anand, you had a question?
I thought,
Go ahead.
no, some of the countries in Latin America, say Argentina, the economy collapsed completely.
twice.
Twice. So, and then also Colombia, it's a complicated country as far as the drugs and narcotics. So, like, how do you, do you deal with the government directly there, or?
We try to, I always say, working in Latin America, as soon as I cannot work with the government, I'm happy. And we try to avoid to deal with the government always.
Yeah.
Because it's really,
It's not needed, yeah.
no, it's, but at the same time, I think in this world where companies is much, much powerful than governments. 3 days ago came out the news that Apple is quoted more than Italy. Italy is the 7th economy of the world. So if Apple were a country, it would be the 7th biggest country of the world in economy, from the economic point of view. And it's not the biggest. Apple is not the biggest company of the world. It's like the 20s. Because there are others before. There are like Exxon, all the oil companies that are bigger. So in a world where those companies have this enormous economic and then political power, we don't need the government anymore. I would say, at least in the local level, it doesn't mean that we have to avoid all the government and cancel the government from the world, but we can do without, And this is the Carizadillo case, the money case is a perfect example. We never see a person from the government.
One of the common things that seems to be coming up is that these resources are common, meaning there's no ownership of the resource. Have you thought about internalizing this externalities by telling the community to invite auctioning and bring competition for the resource to assign ownership?
Well, technically speaking, the state is the owner of the resources. The state is the owner of everything below in pretty much all the countries, below the ground. It depends, the depth of, it depends, like in Mexico it's 1 meter, in Ecuador it's very funny, it's 20 centimeters. That even, it means that potatoes are owned by the state. So technically it's the state who sell the
mineral rights.
The mineral, yeah, the how to say, mineral rights. But the point is that if the community is indigenous, so the state cannot without the consent of the indigenous community, according to international law. Then it's always a big struggle because, yes, I mean it becomes against to the first step of the history. You said it's yours of the government, you sell it, but I'm living here. So okay, you sell under 1 meter, but what about my house? So it's a little bit.
So are they paying loyalties to the government?
Yes.
And can, well, I guess the answer would be to say,
giving back to the community.
Well, not only that, you can increase the loyalties by bringing competition and say, well, those who obey these rules.
That it works here, probably. It works probably in Europe, but it doesn't work with the government of Latin America. Guatemala is asking 1% of royalty, and Honduras 1%, Salvador 1%. Mexico until January this year was asking 0, no royalties. Now they rise to 7%. So the royalty is very few, and Peru, there's no royalty. It's a direct negotiation royalty between the company and the local government. Then try to imagine how a direct negotiation works with the local government of Peru. So unfortunately, this system does not work for the corruption that is up to the start, you know.
So are the mining companies colluding with one another to not compete on oil mine?
No, they compete among themselves, but they not compete fairly, let's say, you know, because who finally gives the concession is the state, and the state is not at all transparent, it's not at all clean. So, I mean, it's not official. And what happened sometimes at the big companies, because the big companies care a lot about their image, while the small one care less. So what happened often is that the big company, well, that is not the big company who buy the mineral rights. There are a lot of small companies, some of them they neither have a web page, who buy the mineral rights and then sell to the company, the big one. You know, it's clear? Mm-hmm. So in that case, for example, of Gold Corp, was not Gold Corp who buy the mineral rights at the beginning, was Louis Mine. If you try to look at the web, Louis Mine, it doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. So this is an entity of nothing, more or less, who take the mineral rights from the government and then sell it to Gold Corp.
In addition to becoming more self-sustaining, what are your goals for the company in the next 5 years or so? What do you guys see the company is going? We plan to grow up to 20%, and no more. But at the moment, we don't want to be bigger than 20%. I've seen a lot of bigger NGOs that becomes so much bureaucratic, and so a couple of persons probably are running the office and the communication, and all the others working on the field. So our plan is to grow up to 20%. We have all the economic grant plan,
now the problem is we are starting to develop this kind of new business models. One with the final users, another one with the lenders of mining industries. So hoping that a lender with a long view can secure their investment, avoiding the conflicts inside the mining industries, and other same business model that we're trying to develop and to use. And then our idea is to be out of grants by the end of 2017, so 3 years. So 3 years still begging for money, actually. So running for grants and donation, at least a part, and switch in 3 years maximum to a self-sustainable system.
So, you won the Tech Award, right? You won it for innovation. What makes Source International so innovative? What separates you, differentiates you from everybody else doing this sort of stuff?
Well, this summer in July, when was the process, the Tech Award brought me an email from the judge asking me if we use some innovative science. And my answer was that we don't use nothing really innovative from the technical point of view. What is innovative is how we use old science. And they just write that we went to the moon 60 years ago, and I don't need that we need more technologies. We landed on a comet 2 weeks ago, and I don't need that we need more technology for bringing clean water. We have it already. The point is use it in a proper manner. So we use some technology that's 100 years old, because we use the pH meters that was built 100 years ago, but no one never see a pH meters in the communities of Mexico, or in the middle of the Amazon forest, or some kit for detecting oil in water. There is some technical kits that you can use and you can learn to use in 3 hours, that you can measure the quantity of grease, so oil pollution inside the water. And an alphabet farmers of the Amazon forest can use it and can learn in a couple of days how to use it, but no one ever brings to them. So our innovation is use technology that already exists, but brings to places where technology never reached. And well, some other places are really no technology at all. At the Tech Award, they were very shocked because I answered like 2 weeks later of the mail that we won, because I was in Mongolia in the middle of nowhere with no internet, and people say, there's a place with no internet in the world? Yes, there is still a place with no internet.
So, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just a more of a practical question. I noticed in your contract it all had based upon mines operating on a daily basis. But every day you pick up the paper, every month you pick up the paper, you see something about a mine having an accident. So in there, is there anything based upon contingency plans of a major economic or ecological disaster?
Can you rephrase?
Yeah, so what do you put in place with the companies to protect the communities in the case of a mine disaster?
Well, so actually we were working in the mine disaster that happened just 2 months ago in Mexico, in Cananea, that is 30 miles from the border, and actually polluting water is coming to the US too. It's difficult. Some companies have an insurance, but again, the economic insurance is not, gives them some money, but you have destroyed my economy, because the agricultural side and the fishing and everything. So the point there is the companies should change their infrastructure in order to avoid disasters. But the problem is that some mining companies like 50 years old, 40 years old, and changing their plan, it means billions of investment. They don't want to do it. And because they don't have done this for 50 years, it's something that, if you change every 2 years, and you update your mechanism, but now you have a 50-year-old mine that cannot update the mechanism. It's too expensive. So that's a tricky point that companies quite often don't want to address. is how to improve the standard and limit the risk. Also after the closure of the mine, because a lot of disasters happen even when the mine is already closed. Because when a mine closed, you have still millions of tons of waste that remains there in the tailing dam. There is a dam, and like all the dam can collapse or can flush out or whatever. And that was happened in Mexico. It was a dam, and it rained a lot. Came out 40,000 cubic meters of sulfuric acid. 200,000 persons with no water for agriculture, no water for cows, nothing. And the economic impact is enormous, you can imagine. And so that's something that is quite hard to address. It's easier if the company is new, but the old ones